That's where all the murders are occurring, Counselor.
In my district,
you know that.
In my district and in Representative Dugan's district, this is about gun trafficking.
Correct.
We're losing sight of what this is about. This is about gun trafficking. In my district and in Representative Dugan's district, and then it goes as far over as Representative Martino's district, you have the main veins of where those guns are being trafficked come from. I've got I-55, I've got I-80, we've got I-39 that runs right into Rockford, and then further over we've got I-57. Those are the main veins that are running into your city. Why wouldn't you want the people that are coming from downstate running right through my district?
The lady's time has expired. Representative Colvin, the gentleman from Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the bill. Mr. Speaker, I guess one of the earlier speakers commented on the fact that he's been here 7 years. Well, so have I. And for 7 years, 7 sessions, I've watched the same people debate the same bills with the same outcomes. In fact, it's become sort of like a bad play that all of us miserably have to sit through. And we know what the final act is going to yield year after year after year. Finally, we have an individual, a gentleman, very smart, articulate, who is trying to move this debate in a different direction, trying to sit down and reasonably discuss the issue of illegal guns in a city that is a magnet for so many illegal weapons and used in so many disastrous ways, that ruins families and communities, hurts schools, families, churches, and all. I think what he's asking for here is well thought out and all too reasonable. As I look at those who are appointing members of the task force, many of which are statewide organizations, I think he's done a very good job and has thought this out very well. However, I will say that as I look at this task force, what is going to be their job but to advance legislation that will come back here, that will be not argued among law enforcers, but lawmakers. And to that point, I think that some of the folks who have spoke today just may have a point. On the other side of the aisle, some of our downstate colleagues who often participate in this 7-year play, and actually it's been going on a lot longer than I've been here. But for the 7 years, I've been had a ticket to the play on gun debate down here. I think it is a little bit reasonable that on the front end, to have some of our colleagues who are lawmakers, not necessarily law enforcement, but who are lawmakers, to sit at the front end of this debate so that we don't come once again and add to another season of the tremendous play in 2009 and 2010 and 2011, to have those individuals at the front end. So it may be a reasonable request to allow those individuals who think that to have the opportunity to serve on such a task force so that we can take this play off of this stage, put it among those who are truly, truly interested in working on and developing a reasonable solution to try to come up with a way to stem the tide of illegal guns into the city of Chicago and Cook County where the problem is most acute. So I would simply comment to the sponsor, I don't think that's a request that's unreasonable, something that certainly is worth consideration. Taking into light the time and the date of the session, if it's something that can be considered and all parts can agree on, it's something that's certainly worth discussion. But to the point of what he has done here, I think is a very good piece of legislation, very well thought out, and very timely. Thank you.
The gentleman from Bond, Leader Stevens, is seeking recognition. A roll call on the amendment has been requested and will be honored.
Well, thank you. Just a couple of things. First of all, the sponsor of the resolution talked to us about this and went to some of the interested parties, and I think there's a misunderstanding. He did make some changes in the resolution, and in the number of in the membership. But my understanding is at this point, and I just shared this with him personally, that the Illinois Rifle Association is still in opposition. That is what it is. But I did want to recognize that he did try to work with them, and they're telling us even at this moment that they're still in opposition. I apologize for any misunderstanding. The sponsor is an honorable man. I rise in opposition.
The gentleman from Representative Flider is seeking recognition.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Indicates he will.
Representative, I know a lot of people are coming down and talking to you and trying to, impart their wisdom, and I was one of those people. And but I think that I wanted to share with you a perspective of something that's happened with me this session with some legislation I had that I think maybe I'd ask you to maybe take into consideration.
Go right
As
ahead.
I read your legislation, your resolution, you're trying to get to the bottom of illegal gun trafficking and trying to stop that.
Well, I'm not necessarily trying to. We're trying to study it. Don't put the cart before the horse.
Oh.
We're trying to figure out where these illegal weapons are coming from, and we're doing an analysis of that.
Okay.
But with that caveat, please continue.
Okay, so we're trying to find out where the illegal weapons are coming from. I had a piece of legislation this year that was brought to me by the family of a young man who was killed in a drive-by shooting in Decatur a couple of years ago. And I was a little concerned that their idea, which would be trying to create a new law which created a new offense of the use of a stolen firearm in the commission of a crime, that maybe some of the gun, the NRA and the State Rifle Association and so on might take offense to that. But in fact, what they did was they supported that legislation. They came to committee and they supported that legislation. And the reason that they supported that legislation because law-abiding gun owners, above all else, do not want to see weapons stolen. They do not support the illegal use of weapons. Law-abiding gun owners, above all else, want to see people who use weapons in the commission of a crime, they want to see them thrown in jail. And they want to see not only federal charges, but state charges. So I guess the only point I'd say here is that you're trying to look at something that's illegal. The trafficking of firearms is illegal. And the Rifle Association and the NRA have more at stake, more to gain because they represent gun owners whose weapons are being stolen. They have a lot at stake. They would want to help you with this because they would want to stop people from stealing weapons. They would want to stop the crime. And I really would encourage you, you could get probably every vote in this chamber if you would just be more inclusive in terms of who you would like to be on this committee. And I would think you'd want every vote.
I would ask members to refrain or keep their comments on the amendment that we're addressing as opposed to the underlying bill.
So my request would be, I think it'd just be if you take this out of the record, consider an amendment to this and be more inclusive, you'll get every vote in this chamber. Please consider that. Thank you.
Our next speaker, the gentleman from Fulton, Representative Smith. Representative Smith is seeking recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the previous question.
Previous question has been moved. There has been a request for a roll call on floor amendment number 1. Representative Thapedi to close.
Well, I can certainly appreciate the spirited debate that we've heard here this afternoon. This is obviously a very difficult issue. I've learned that. Mr. Speaker, if I could have a little order in the chamber, please.
Please give the gentleman your attention.
As I was saying, this is obviously a very difficult issue that we have been dealing with in Springfield for quite some time, and it appears that we're always going to have that line in the sand. But ultimately, we're going to have to come to some type of an accord. Ultimately, we're going to have to come to some sense of resolution. And I simply ask you all to look at this resolution for what it is. And what it is it's creating a task force. And the purpose of the task force is very simple: to study the measures to reduce illegal trafficking of weapons into Illinois. That is the gist of it. There's nothing much more to it, and I would ask you to vote aye in favor of this resolution. Mr. Speaker, on the advice of counsel, I'd like to pull this out of the record.
The gentleman has asked the bill be taken from the record.